In section 8.1, we were adding and subtracting polynomials. Now in section 8.2, we're going to multiply polynomials. And the best way to do that is just by looking at a bunch of examples. So here, example number 1, find the product. We have part A, 3x squared times 2x cubed minus x squared plus 4x minus 3. So we need to take this monomial times this polynomial. Since it's 4 terms, we're just going to call that a polynomial since there's no specific name for a 4-termed polynomial. So again, I'm going to take 3x squared times each term inside of the parentheses. So I'm just going to distribute. So my first step, I would take 3x squared times 2x cubed. Just take 3 times 2, which is 6. And then remember, when you're multiplying things with exponents, you add the exponents. So x squared times x cubed would be x to the 5th. Just add the exponents. Next, I'm going to take 3x squared times negative x squared. So 3 times a negative would be negative 3. And then x squared times x squared, I would just add the exponents, would be x to the 4th. Next, 3x squared times 4x, so just take the 3 times the 4, which is 12. And then I would have x squared and x to the 1st. So adding those together, I'd have x to the 3rd, or x cubed. And then finally, I would take the 3x squared times the negative 3. So 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. And then there is no x's on the negative 3, so it's just going to stay as x squared. And that would be my product of part A. For part B, notice we have the monomial x times the binomial 7x squared plus 4. So again, we're just going to distribute. So x times 7x squared, since there is no coefficient on the x, it's just going to stay 7 and be x to the 1st times x squared, so it'll be x to the 3rd, or x cubed. And then I'm going to take x times 4. So x times 4 is just 4x. And that would be the product of x times 7x squared plus 4. So just a reminder, these two examples were where we took a monomial times a polynomial. So we had 1 term times 4 terms and 1 term times 2 terms. So this would be a monomial times a binomial and a monomial times just a polynomial, since there is no specific name for a 4-termed polynomial. In the following examples, we're going to see different kinds of polynomials like binomials, trinomials, etc., and see how you multiply those to each other. So here's example number 2. It again says find the product. So notice in these examples, we're taking a binomial times a binomial times a binomial. We're going to do exactly like we were doing with the monomials, and we just need to distribute. So for part A, we have x plus 4 times 2x minus 1. We need to take the x times the 2x and the x times the negative 1, and then we're going to take the 4 times the 2x and the 4 times the negative 1. And then in the end, we're just going to combine like terms. So we're just going to take this term, multiply both of them over here, and then take the second term and multiply them both over here. So what we're going to do is take x times 2x. X times 2x would be 2x squared. And then I'm going to take x times negative 1. So that would just become minus x, or minus 1x, however you want to write that. And then now I'm going to take the 4 and take it times the 2x. So 4 times 2 is 8, and then we just put the x right back on it. And then take the 4 times the negative 1. So we'd have minus 4. And then the end, what we need to do is combine like terms. So we have 2x squared. There's nothing alike with the 2x squared, so it just stays as it is. But then we have negative x plus 8x. So together, that would be positive 7x. But remember, when you're combining like terms, you do not add the exponents. The only time I add the exponents is if I'm multiplying. I'm just combining here, so do not add the exponents. And then I would just have minus 4. So the product of x plus 4 times 2x minus 1 is 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. And now let's look at part B. We have 4n minus 1 times n plus 5. So again, we have a binomial times a binomial. So our goal here is just to take this term times both terms over here, and the second term times both terms over there. So again, we're just going to distribute. 4n times n would be 4n squared. N times n is n squared. 4n times 5, that would be 20n. Just take the 4 times the 5. And then now I'm going to take the negative 1 times the n. So that would be negative 1n, or just negative n. And then negative 1 times 5, that would be minus 5. So again, now we just have to combine like terms. So the 4n squared does not have a like term, so I'm just going to copy it down. But then I have the 20n minus n. So it literally says I have 20 n's and I'm taking an n away. So I would have 19 n's left over. Again, do not add exponents when you're combining like terms. And then I have minus 5. So again, the product of 4n minus 1 times n plus 5 is 4n squared plus 19n minus 5. In example number 3, the directions are still to find the product, but notice that we are taking 3 terms times 2 terms, so a trinomial times a binomial, and that is true for all 3 examples. 3 terms times 2 terms, so a trinomial times a binomial. So just like when we took a binomial times a binomial, we're just going to take each term and multiply all of them by both terms in the second parenthesis. So we're going to take the a squared times the 2a, the a squared times the 3, the 3a times the 2a, the 3a times the 3, and the negative 4 times the 2a, and the negative 4 times the 3. So again, we're just distributing. So a squared times 2a, so it would just be 2a to the third. A squared times a is a to the third. A squared times 3 would be 3a squared. Next, we're going to take the 3a times the 2a. So 3 times 2 is 6. A times a is a squared. And then I'm going to take the 3a times the 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then I'll just put the a back on. And then finally take the negative 4 times the 2a. So that would be negative 4a. And negative 4 times 3 would be negative 12. So then in the end, we're just needing to combine like terms. There is no other a to the third term. So 2a to the third stays as it is. Then we have 3a squared and 6a squared. Together, that means I have 9a squared. Do not add the exponents when I combine like terms. And then I have 9a and negative 8a. So that would just be plus a. And then the minus 12 is the only constant term. So this would be the product of that trinomial times that binomial. So now let's look at part B. We have x squared plus 2x plus 1 times x plus 2. So again, we're going to take each term in the first parenthesis times each term in the second parenthesis. So we're going to start with x squared times x. So that would be x to the third. X squared times 2 would be 2x squared. Next, we're going to take the 2x times the x. So that would be 2x squared again. And then 2x times 2 is 4x. And then finally, we're going to take the 1 times the x, which would just be x. And then 1 times 2 is 2. So again, just as always, we're going to make sure we combine like terms. There is no other cubed term, so the x cubed is just going to stay as it is. Then I have 2x squared and 2x squared, so that would be 4x squared. Do not add the exponents. And then I have 4x and x, so together I have 5x. And then there is no other constant term, so it's just plus 2. So the product of x squared plus 2x plus 1 times x plus 2 is x cubed plus 4x squared plus 5x plus 2. And now let's look at part C. 2x squared minus x minus 2 times 3x minus 1. So just take each term in the first parenthesis times each term in the second parenthesis. So 2x squared times 3x, 2 times 3 is 6. X squared times x is x cubed. 2x squared times negative 1 would just be negative 2x squared. That would just turn it to its opposite. Negative x times 3x, so a negative times a positive is a negative, and then x times x is x squared. And then negative x times negative 1, that would just change that to plus x. And then I'm going to take the negative 2 times the 3x, so that would be negative 6x. And negative 2 times negative 1 would be positive 2. And as we did before, just combine like terms. There is no other x cubed term, so 6x cubed stays as it is. Negative 2x squared and negative 3x squared, that would be negative 5x squared. X and negative 6x, that would be negative 5x. And then the only constant term was the plus 2. So there would be the product of 2x squared minus x minus 2 times 3x minus 1. So remember, all you're doing is taking each term in the first parenthesis times each term in the second parenthesis. Example number 4. A rectangle has dimensions of x plus 3 and x plus 5. So if we had a rectangle, it's saying that one side is x plus 3 and another side is x plus 5. Find the expression that represents the area of the rectangle. Well, remember, the area of a rectangle is either length times width or base times height, which they give us the base and the height, x plus 5 and x plus 3. So all I'm going to do to find the area is take the x plus 3 times the x plus 5. So a binomial times a binomial, I'm just going to distribute. X times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 5 is 15. And of course, just combine like terms. So our area formula would be x squared plus, I'm going to combine these, so it would be 8x plus 15. So this expression represents the area of the rectangle with dimensions of x plus 3 and x plus 5. And finally, we come to example number 5. It says a rectangular trivet has a ceramic center and a wooden border. So it's to be ceramic inside here and wooden on the outside. The dimensions of the center and the board are shown in the diagram. So the ceramic part is 8 inches across and 6 inches down, and then the border, the wooden part, is X inches this way and X inches that way. So for the first part, it says write a polynomial that represents the total area of the trivet. So we need to take area, which is equal to base times height. So the base would be this entire distance down here. Remember, it's X over here and also X over here, and then 8 inches all the way across right here. So I'd have 2 X's and then plus 8. So the base would be 2X plus 8. Now for the height. So we have X up here, X down here. So X up here, X down here, and then the total 6 inches this way. So just like before, I have 2 X's and then plus this 6. So the total height would be 2X plus 6. So now what I want to do is multiply this all out. So I have a binomial times a binomial. So I'm going to take 2X times 2X, which would be 4X squared, 2X times 6, which is 12X, 8 times 2X, which would be 16X, and then 8 times 6 is 48. So then finally, I'm just going to combine like terms. So the 4x squared would stay as it is. 12x plus 16x is 28x. And then I would just have that plus 48. So this is the polynomial that represents the area of this trivet. And now for the second part, it says, what is the total area of the trivet if the width of the border is 2 inches? So if the width of the border is 2 inches, that means that x is equal to 2. So what we're going to do is take our formula from the first part, and just every time we see an x, we're going to put a 2. So it would be a equals 4 times 2 squared plus 28 times 2 plus 48. So I can just type this into my calculator and get my answer, which would be 120, and since this is an area, it'd be inches squared. So that's it for this section. Make sure you jot down anything you didn't understand that we can cover in class, and we'll see you then.